All right, looks like I'm live. Yet another unpredicted, unplanned live. I'm gonna wait a second, see how many people catch on to the fact that I'm live. I really want to get to the point that I could pre-predict these things, but I was actually working on editing a video, and I really wanted to get a video out today, and it just needs more work. Because it's a solar video, so there's a lot of details I want to put in there. So yeah, I want to keep that editing and just but I wanted to check in with you guys today, so I really wanted to do a live. I'm trying to really get my content consistency up. Hey, awesome, we got a bunch of people. I see Dylan and Nancy, Kat, Hellcat Surian, Valerie, D Bacon. So yeah, it looks like the room's filling up. I might have missed the name. James is here. Hey James, what's up from you? I've really got to get down to Texas, man. Oh my gosh, I want to definitely do a drive down to Texas, like in the near future. Oh, the fabric. Let me see if I can find one of my pins so I can show you. Here we go. I have one. So I have this thing. It's called a T pin, and it has a little T head on it. And basically how I'm holding everything up on my roof is I just kind of stick this into the fabric, into the corner of things, and then it just holds stuff up. So I have like a little Harry Potter flag over here you can't see. I have this flag. I have my Superman poster. I have the art my friend made me. So yeah, all that's being held up with T-pins basically. And so they're basically like little reverse push pins that I can put into the roof, the fabric on the roof, and it pretty much it's also holding up my lights. So it took me a while to put these in because there's basically little T-pins holding up all of my lights. Let me pull up the big screen so I can catch you guys' comments a little faster because I'm doing this on my phone. And so the comments disappear. So it's much harder to keep up with comments looking at this screen than looking at my other screen, so I'm going to get that up just so I can track what's being said, guys. So I'm not ignoring you. Things come and then they disappear. Do take a minute to jump out of this. Sorry. Looks like I had a moment of reconnecting. I'm not sure how secure my connection is. But yeah, take a minute to give the video a like if you've just jumped into the room. All you got to do is usually jump out the window, but for a second. Usually that's like a comment screen you can drop, and then you can just like the video, depending on if you're on mobile or if you are on a laptop. This really doesn't want to show me the screen. Ah! I keep getting reconnecting, so I think I don't know what's going on you guys' end, but it seems like I keep dropping out of communication. So first of all, I am trying to get healthy, so I'm trying to give up soda. I'm trying so hard to give up soda, but what I did today was I got me some Diet Canada Dry. I don't think diet soda is good. I think it's bad. But I at least got the diet because I'm trying to work my way around from soda. I have given up soda entirely in the past for months to a year at a time. But usually what happens is you go out with friends and the only thing you can really drink is soda. And then it just starts you down a dark, dark path. The diet ginger ale honestly isn't bad. It's not as good as ginger ale, but it isn't bad. But yeah, I've given up soda before, so it's baby steps. It's baby steps. And I think it's also good to not have dark soda. Somebody asked how you can donate. There's a PayPal link that's in most of my video descriptions. I'm not sure if it's in this one yet. And that is an excellent way to donate to the channel. It goes directly to me. There is no YouTube cut. Unlike Super Chats and basically ad revenue. Super Chats are great. I appreciate Super Chats, but also the PayPal link is the most direct way to donate. Doo-doo-doo. All right, so let's see if I'm having any more luck with my device here so I can catch all of you guys' chats. I'm having technical difficulties, guys. So one, I am trying to... All right. So oh, shoot, I need to... any more luck with my device here. Let me mute myself. You guys' chats. Let me see. I'm having technical difficulties, guys. I can't mute myself. So one, I am trying to... All right. So oh, shoot, I need to... any more luck with my device here. There we go. I muted myself. That was so weird. All right, coolio. Let's see here. All right, I'm just gonna scroll down. Do. So happy to have so many people jumping on, like, oh, you're live. Do. Yeah, my picture keeps freezing because I keep having like a bad connection, so forgive me for that. What is it? PayPal.me or something. me/nonbinary. Sorry, I'm resolving some technical stuff. This is the only thing about lives. You guys get to see all the awkward moments of like sorting out the tech. When I get to edit videos, you only see what I want you to see. All right. So that's the direct link. By the way. So I'm happy to have everybody here. Sparkling water is great, Rick. And I've also used that as like a transition drink where you still feel like you're getting sort of that sensation of soda, for lack of a better step. But it's also just starting to like cut out the desire for something sweet. So that is a good transitional drink. I love La Croix. Is it La Croix or LaCroix? That only happened in California. Like, before California, I was not sipping on La Croix or LaCroix, or however it's pronounced. I have no idea. I'm just seeing if there's anything I wanna jump on real quick before I talk. So, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit update on my work situation. So, as you all know, there's like a guy who's been standing me up, who needs to give me an interview at the Children's Museum for a house management position. And he stood me up for like 2 interviews where I then had to follow up with him. And he's like, oh yeah, I just got busy. And then he didn't reply to my follow-up female recently. So, hey, Maddie. So unfortunately, like, it's still in my back pocket, but it's really not anything I'm focusing on. The sad part is the person who would actually be my boss, who I worked with while I was working for BACT, because they were renting a space there. She like wants me hired like yesterday. So the person who would actually be in charge of me once I'm hired, like, wants me already hired. Right? But the person that needs to hire me so that can happen has been like unavailable and hard to catch up with. So that has been frustrating. So on that front, this guy is like driving me crazy. On another front, I got offered not 1, but 2 shows recently. Now they're both for later in the year, but they're both decently paying shows that happen later in the year. One is pretty much a like 90% done deal. The other one's 50-50. But otherwise, it does look good that I'm starting to get offers in my inbox for shows that'll kind of start to fill out 2020, because I really didn't have much of anything except hope fingers crossed, and some good relationships built on the previous year. So I feel like one show, there's an 80% chance that it's going to be finally signed off on the dotted line. And the other one, there's a 50-50 chance, but they're both later in the year, like midway towards the end. And then I already have something booked for March into April. But, you know, it looks like the future is looking bright, and hopefully it continues to look bright. So I have some possible offers, fingers crossed. And then I still have this guy that I'm chasing down for an interview, only because the house management position would be perfect for filling in the gaps between shows, especially awkward gaps where there's not enough time to stick another show in there. But, you know, I could pick up a shift here and there that would kind of be in the zone of the field I want to be in, would look good on my resume, and wouldn't be just side work for money, which is my preference. Now, if I have to do side work for money, I'm going to do side work for money, because I'm going to do my thing. Anyway, Nancy, the weather sucks right now, which is funny because that video I just did, the poll response video, like, it was beautiful that day. Like, I was out, like, it was still kind of cold, and I didn't have my jacket on. I'm out in my shorts. I'm like, it was still kind of cold. Like, a lot of little Californians were running around in their coats because they can't stand a little bit of, like, literally one time I had on my light jacket, and I turned around, and this girl has on like a down jacket. It's not that cold. Like, it was cold. Like, it was hoodie weather, but it wasn't that cold. And she got on like a down coat that's like all the way down to her knees. And I was like, Californians. But it's kind of rainy and miserable right now. Like, it's been raining all day, which is fine because I've been focusing on editing. I did some Amazon deliveries last night. It was actually one of my more chill shifts. There are a couple of awkward deliveries, but mostly it went kind of smooth. I picked up some packages, dropped them all off, was done pretty much on time. There wasn't a lot of extra time spent, so it went pretty smooth last night. And then today I was kind of focusing on editing the solar video that I want to get out at least by tomorrow. So yeah, it was a miserable day, but it was a good day to be just sitting in the van, like, editing. So yeah. Keith, I do try to be like kind of cautious, but yeah, good point. We'll see what happens. At this point, I've said what I've said, so I kind of can't take away anything I've said, so we'll see. And I'll just have to deal with those situations as it happened. Anything I feel iffy with, I usually back off saying the actual name. So yeah. And also, if I mention a name, I usually like to say positive things. If I have negative things to say, I try to keep that off of YouTube. But also, like, once you're wearing the shirt of the company in a video and you forgot about it and it got published, there isn't much you can do. Oh, thank you for the $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Samantha. That's so sweet. I'm so glad to have new people here. So thank you, Miss Chicago. That's how I should say it. Go pay your electric bill wearing a coat in the house. Oh no, this was welfare office. No, this was somebody outside, but it wasn't that cold. I didn't know why they had on like a down coat. I'm like, it's not that cold. Like, it was chilly, but it wasn't that cold. So yeah, so that's my work and life update right now. I'm just waiting on people. I'm waiting on people. So yeah. Giggles Forter. I like that name. That's awesome. All right. So anybody have any questions for me? Any thoughts? Anything you want to share? Oh, shoot. And my computer keeps... Stop it. Stop making sounds. I don't want you to make sounds. There we go. This is the problem of having two screens going on. All right. Let's see. Oh, shoot. I'm really trying to fix this, but it keeps... I can't sing. Why the hell am I singing? Ooh, I know what to do. Really low-tech way to fix this. There we go. I think I fixed it. Yes. Okay, this will work. Now I can use two screens. Glad you liked the review of the refrigerator. Iconic night. Whoop, whoop. That's right. Just jump into that van life. You can always go back if you hate it, but I think you're going to love it. Thank you for your reply on my positive spirit joy. I want to visit Chicago. I'm seeing all this Chicago love up in the chat. It's cold here in Scotland. Yeah, it's probably colder than it is here. I really shouldn't complain. Like, it's rainy and it's not fun to be like outside right now, but it's not like terribly miserable. Any short trips planned while you're waiting? Valerie, maybe. I'm waiting for some other information before I can move. While there's the possibility I might have to take an interview, I don't want to be too far away. So like super short, maybe like a day trip. But right now I'm just trying to sort out some things so I know where money's coming from in the future. Are you sleeping near the interstate? Lots of traffic? No, I'm just on a busy street in the Oakland area. And it's where I was last night, so sorry about all the traffic. I saw a question. Dawn, do you think van life's something? And then it jumped. Do you think van life has become trendy? I think the false perception of van life has become trendy, where it's this city where you can get your job and have like a Mercedes Sprinter and not have to work and, you know, start a YouTube channel and just make money doing that. And I think, like, you know, some YouTube channels succeed right away and others don't. And you have to be prepared for that. So if you want to do the YouTube thing like that, that's just a big commitment, and you sort of have to have the financial wherewithal to actually, like, almost dedicate yourself to being a travel channel. Which is difficult. I mean, traveling all the time is different from living in a van full time. And I think, oh, thank you, P. Moore, for the $20 super chat. It means so much. But yeah, I think like the Instagram idea of van life is trendy, more so than the reality of van life. But I also, based on the results of my poll, I think there's a lot of people who are just like, rent costs too darn much, and it costs a lot in a lot of places. There are cheaper places versus more expensive places, but are those places near the jobs and job opportunities you want to be near, which is something people forget. They're like, move to this place because it's cheap, but they're not thinking about what that person does for employment, if they want to leave their job, if they have family in a certain area. There's a lot of people who don't want to be 500 miles away from their family, and actually what living in a van does is it lets them stay close to family. I mean, I'd hate to call up the Godfather Bob Wells, who I think is trending down, actually. But you know, that's what when he initially moved into a van, it was because he was divorced, but he still wanted to be near his kids, but he couldn't afford housing. So I think like a lot of the reality of van life isn't trendy so much as the Instagram version of van life. That's a long answer, but that was a good question. Which cities are best for van dwellers in the Bay Area in your opinion? Samantha. I can't say Woo! There's really loud. Somebody beeping a horn at somebody. Yes, I'm on a busy street. Sorry. I personally am really, really comfortable in the Berkeley and Oakland areas, but that's just me. And that's also because a lot of work I've gotten in this area have been in those two areas. So I base so much of my parking on where I have a job, like being close to a job, in proximity to a job. That's what's most important to me, more so than, how am I going to phrase this? My proximity to work is is the most important to me. So I haven't really tested the area to be like, hey, if I go to, I don't know, San Pablo, like, is it easier to park here than Oakland? Because I'm not really making that comparison. It's always like, okay, there has to be somewhere I can park a minivan anywhere. And I sort of approach it that way. So I haven't really like challenged the area just to find those prime spots. I personally don't like being in areas that's overwrought with obvious van dwellers. And that's because I think sooner or later, when you can tell and there's like a lot of people doing it, sooner or later those areas are going to get targeted. Now, it's fun to visit it and maybe meet some other van dwellers, but I don't like congested spots where it's like there's obviously like 3 RVs and 4 vans like right here, even though those areas exist. I personally when I first started, I actually would look for that. And the more comfortable I got, the less I looked for that. Like, I'm fine with being the only van dweller that hardly anybody's paying attention to because it's just a busy city street. So yeah, that's a long answer to that question. Ryan, I'm from the Baltimore area. Woohoo, my home city. Could you see yourself doing this life back here? It was cold this morning. If I had a job in Baltimore, I would make it work, but I would never go to Baltimore in the winter for fun. So I couldn't see me living there like full-time, committed to living in a van in Baltimore. If I had to and there was work there, I would make it work. I honestly think I can make it work anyway. So yeah, that's my answer to the Baltimore question. Love your spirit. Thank you, Susie. Hello, Dawn from Dallas, Texas. I need to visit Texas, man. It's so accessible. Bye, Nancy. Where do you like to travel to? What is the most friendly beach, or urban mountains? I'm not sure, to be honest, Lori. I've kind of randomly popped around to like beach areas, like when I've done a little bit of driving, but I don't know that I've like targeted, oh, this is the most friendly place or anything like that. I'm way too random for that. Lucia, I don't know if I'm spelling your name right, says, thank you for sharing your life with us. You're inspiring. Have you ever used one of those portable jump starters? If so, how was it? Possible review video. I have not personally owned one, but twice when I've called AAA, the guy who came out, like, all he's using is a portable jump starter. And so I did ask him, because I was thinking about buying one. I was like, sort of, what should I be looking for? What should I get? He was saying for like a regular like vehicle, anything in about the $80 range is probably good enough. He had a really high-end one, but obviously they work if AAA is sending out their people with it. So, like, I personally haven't used one, but it's been used on my car. But I haven't, like, purchased the product to actually try it. It is something I want to get, just so I don't have to call AAA for something as simple as a jump. But I have seen AAA use those jump starters, so they work. I also have jump starter cables that I can connect to one of my power stations. So I'm curious if it ever happens, and I don't even want to bring that down on me, trying, using those jumper cables with a power station and seeing if it actually works. because I've seen it done, and I was like, oh, awesome, you can just get like the cables, hook it to the power station, and the power station also is able to jump your car. So that's cool. I saw that I need to wait till late spring for Chicago. Sorry. I'm trying to capture. Wait till late spring for Chicago. It's very cold and windy. Yeah, probably the same with Baltimore. I should wait till it's warm. But I hear Chicago's a great theater city. Do I get lonely living alone? Not really, because like I'm mostly an introvert. So yeah, if anything, I have to tell myself I should probably go hang out with people, because I probably can be alone too easily, which is probably bad. No, there are points where I want people, but like I'm an introvert, so I feel more energized doing, having my space, than being around people. But I still like people. I don't dislike people. I like my space. When you come visit, you can park on my block. They don't bother you via trucks with trailer park. Awesome. Oakland, great earthquake zone. Ouch. You know what? We've had micro earthquakes and I hardly ever feel them. Is that weird? Like, or I don't like the first time I felt one, like I didn't freak out, but a friend of mine freaked out, and she was from the South, so it was definitely new for her. Why stay in Northern California? Because that's where I currently have the best contacts for my job. That's why I'm here. Even if theater is somewhere else, you still have to get into that city, start making contacts, and build that up. Now, I came to California for a internship, basically. They call it a fellowship program, but it's basically an internship. And so I was here, and then in my transition out of that program, I began to make theater contacts in the area. So I ended up staying in the area. So that's all it is. P. Moore, thanks for the super chat. Keep doing what you do, because your positive energy and laugh are contagious, and will return to you everything you wish for. Thank you. Dylan, facts. You can also stay on my block as well. Thank you, Dylan. California is too costly to live in per square inch. Ouch. I mean, like, the only real cost difference in California for me is probably gas. Honestly, my insurance is not too expensive, and my van's going to cost the same no matter where I take it. So really the only cost difference is gas. And I think like the gas difference is even over exaggerated, because a lot of people's only experience with California is like right off the highway. Now, mind you, gas is still more than probably it is elsewhere, but like the difference between like San Francisco and like one of the gas stations that I go to in Oakland is almost $1 per gallon. So like once you live in an area, you can figure it out. Yes, California is costly, especially if you want any sort of enclosed structure that the state of California controls. Sure, van life is trendy the same way out of control rent is trendy. Yes, Kat. Exactly. It's a lot of people going, wait, you pay how much to live in a van? Like, even having a van payment looks more appealing than most rent in expensive cities. Which cities are best for van dwellers in the Bay Area, in your opinion? Like, I hate, personally, San Francisco. Like, when I have to stay in San Francisco, and I should say San Francisco proper, because South San Francisco is actually pretty easy to park in. Like, I personally hate it, but I know people who base their whole van life around actual, like, San Francisco. I am very comfortable in Berkeley because I like the slower pace of Berkeley. So, yeah. Thank you, Maddie. That was a fun video to do on the poll. Do you get all the money when it's sent via Super Chat, or is it better PayPal? PayPal is direct. YouTube gets a cut of whatever comes through a Super Chat. Yeah. a landlord. Property is very expensive. We need to, sorry, I'm trying to read. Yes, I don't blame the landlords. Usually the landlords have obligations to the property in some way. So, and they're trying to turn a profit. Like you don't rent stuff out except to turn a profit. So it's like you're trying to maintain your own life and you're trying to maintain these properties. And one of the advantages of renting something, because I had a landlord I loved, was when something broke, I didn't have to fix it. I called the landlord, and it was like, oh, the heat isn't working, landlord. Oh, the plumbing's doing something weird, landlord. So I don't really blame the landlords. They can only respond to the cost of living as it is. So there's much, don't get me wrong, there's like scummy landlords out there, but they are also semi-obligated to also what it actually costs to maintain the property, plus actually make it worth it for them to be a landlord at all. So yeah. Do I ever consider going to other areas for work in between contracts? It's very difficult to get work out of state because, especially places that don't have housing, when you are non-union, which is most small theaters, don't want to hear you live in a van and you're going to park outside of their theater. So you can't lead with that. So that's why it's really difficult. It's a little easier when you're a union stage manager. A lot of the bigger theaters do have housing because they bring in actors from out of the area. And so at that point, you have the clout of the union. So they're like, oh, I don't care that you're from California. I'm already planning to house you when you get here. But in my perfect world, I would always have like contracts that take me to other states. But the problem is making those connections enough that it actually happens. Like at the end of the day, people are looking for quote unquote local people, and saying I live in a van isn't usually encouraging to them hiring you. They're like, what? Like it's a little weird. So yeah, it's difficult, but that would be my ideal situation, that I would get to work in multiple states. That it's one of the advantages of living in a van, but it's like a weird thing to sell to strangers as a reason why you can work out of state. How much fakery is presented in van dweller YouTube vids? Lori asked. I don't know. I'm not those YouTubers. Some people think if somebody's happy in their situation, they're being fake. And I don't subscribe to this idea that you have to be negative for it to be real. Like, I can say there's bad stuff about this lifestyle, there's tough stuff about this lifestyle, without necessarily being negative about it. Like when I was talking about getting water. Like, getting water is kind of a pain in the butt. But I still prefer the lifestyle as a whole over what I would be obligated to, especially cost-wise, if I was living in a local apartment or something like that, So yeah, so that's what it is. But I don't have to come on and be negative and for lack of a better term, bitchy about it. I've just officially made this video not for children. So I think it's one thing to be satisfied and another to be fake. I think there is a lot of pretend, especially for people who are designing their channel around being a show and not sharing themselves. And I think a lot of the quote unquote bigger YouTubers are like that. Like at this point, they're putting on a show and they feel like to put on that show and to continue a lifestyle they probably like, they have to keep up the standards of a show. So it's really hard to say without actually meeting people how fake they are. Because some people can have the same thing as somebody else and they can be satisfied with it, and that person is miserable. There's a lot of people who would be miserable with a lot of the things I do on a daily basis, but for me, it's not a big deal. So fakeness is a hard thing to like pinpoint, especially for people who are doing this as a job and they know they're delivering a TV show and that's how they approach it. Like, I want to feel more like I'm sharing my reality, but I don't feel like I need to bring negativity into it just because bad things happen. Bad things happen, Bad things happen when you live in a house. Bad things happen when you're rich. Bad things happen when you're poor. Bad things happen when you're working class. Bad things happen. But overall, are you in a life that you like? And if so, you deal with the bad stuff and you move on, you know? So fake it's a difficult word, and I think it's thrown around a little too flippantly sometimes. So yeah, so that's my answer to that one. Truth for Hurt says, hi Don, I'm going to say hi back. Would you consider the Vegas area? I was considering Vegas because I was like, there's performers out there. But yeah. Somebody said, okay, so, Agent Officer Thomas A. Porter. Dawn, question, how much per month is needed to live in a van? It depends on your van. And it depends on if you're traveling. That is a completely impossible question to answer. If you buy your van outright with no van payment, if you do have a van payment, but it's a smaller van versus a larger van, if it's an older van versus a newer van, like there are way too many factors to decide how much is actually needed to live in a van. What you have to decide going into van life is, do you want van payments or not? And that may depend on how much your income is going to change. If you're planning on leaving your job and living off savings, you probably don't want to get something with a van payment. You want to get a van that's reasonably free of payments, and you're going to want to have definitely some sort of like enough of a buffer where you're like, if something goes wrong, I can fix it. If you're planning on continuing a job you already have, if your income is not going to change, either because you're a digital nomad or you have a local job that you're not planning on leaving, then maybe you're like, I have a job, I can handle the van payment, I want a few more creature comforts, I want to be able to stand up, and so you spend a little more for a van, and you also take on a bigger van payment. So like, those are the things that you have to consider, depending on what kind of vehicle you have. That's going to affect what kind of insurance you need to keep on it. A lot of people want buses. Buses are commercial vehicles. So either you're going to have to figure out transitioning that. There's going to be money involved in that. So first there's the big cost of getting into the van, and then van, bus, whatever you want to get into. And then there's the continuing costs that are going to affect you once you're in it. So if you get it with a van payment, there's continuing costs. Insurance is going to be a continuing cost, but are you planning on changing that number? Like if you're going to convert a bus, which is a commercial vehicle, or even a lot of the standing vans are commercial vehicles, then you may have to get it off the lot with commercial insurance and then plan on the transition to getting it reclassified from its commercial status. And if you don't reclassify it, then it's like, can you handle the commercial insurance that comes with it? So there's way too many factors to say how much does it cost to live in a van. You can make it cost as much or more than living in a house, and that's a fact. It's not that hard. Especially if you put stuff on credit cards because you want to have the biggest, flashiest van around. So now you have a van payment, you put everything you want to put in the van, all your solar and your lights and all your stuff on a credit card. It can be a lot. Like, you can pay to live in a van as you can in a house, or you can make it super cheap. And it's all about those decisions you make going into it. Van itself doesn't mean cheap. Cheap is a choice of how you get into van life. So yeah. Let me see what else is. I love the random keep on trucking. Sorry, everything's happening fast, so I'm trying to really look at some of these questions. I'm probably way behind you guys, by the way, because AutoZone uses those portable starters too. I just had mine done. The guy said it was $99 at AutoZone. Kat said, I wouldn't live in Vegas, but it's a lot cheaper than North Cali. I would live in Vegas. From what I know about it, but I've never lived there, so I should go visit it before I say that. But right now, based on my perception of Vegas, I could live there. I also hear there's a lot of casinos in Vegas where it's very easy to park. My jump starter was $65 on Amazon. There are cheaper ones that do smaller motors. Nice tip, Freedom Dove. There's always cheap stuff on Amazon, but you always have to, I always question stuff that's too cheap. Vegas is not a safe city to live in, van or box truck. Okay, I will take it from you. I know somebody who lives in Vegas though, and she loves it out of a van. Is it easier in Northern California because of the cooler and milder temps? Do you mean easier in Northern California than Southern California? It depends on what your preference is. It's gonna be weather-wise, I would assume, except for like in the middle of summer, it could be arguably nicer in Southern California than Northern California. But it depends on how you want to deal with weather and how much heat bothers you. If you feel like you're really good at mitigating heat in the van, then I don't know, maybe you'll like Southern California, except for a few months where you might want to go somewhere cooler. Sorry about the traffic noise. SF is only 6 square miles, which is funny because everybody thinks like San Francisco is like the definition of the area around here, much like LA is the definition of Southern California, and there's so much more to California than those two places. I'm just glancing at some things. I love that you're being more active. Do you have a set workout or just whatever you feel? Dylan, I'm trying to figure out a new routine. I do best when I have a routine. So I would like to have a set workout. The difficulty with having a set workout is it's hard when your work schedule is changing. When I've done the best, I had sort of a set work schedule in my life, and therefore I could say, oh, for the next month I know where I'm going to be. So on Wednesday, where I have the whole day off, like I can get up a little later, but on like all the other days where I have to be somewhere early, I have to get up even earlier than that to make room for the exercise time. When your day could change tomorrow, it's a little harder to set those parameters. It's not impossible. That would be making excuses, but it's just a little harder. So yeah. Dawn, you inspire me, and I watch your channel and training for my upcoming van life. I feel you are genuine, and thank you for letting us experience your journey with you. Thank you so much. Looks like we're discussing the amount of watts to run things like ovens, microwaves, and charging electronics. So Iconic Night, charging electronics, that doesn't really take a lot of energy. So it's really what you're calculating for is things like toaster ovens and microwaves. Maybe your laptop, just to chime in a little bit here. But phones are never going to take that much power. So yeah, like little things like that. So really it's the big stuff you're calculating for. And then you could probably just throw in a couple, a little chunk more of watts there and be able to figure out what your needs are. 200,000 houses here on the West Coast owned by hedge funds, and they set the rents. Also, Airbnb and foreign investors tie up a lot of housing stock here. Yeah, Silver Surfer. You're right. Have you ever been to Walnut Creek? I've been in and out of Walnut Creek. I've never stayed there overnight. Dylan, I prefer to see basic builds and watching people like live real life, van life. All the builds I've seen are like over the top. Dylan, there are a lot of over the top builds where like, I'm like, that at the end of the day, that's a deteriorating vehicle. So you put an insane amount of money in it, it's going to be comfortable to live in, but at the end of the day, it's a deteriorating vehicle. So yeah, sometimes I'm like, maybe, especially when they have to have it in one day. When people have built up stuff over time, I kind of respect it more than like the people who are like, I'm going to drop thousands of dollars, boom. And then they usually hate something about their build because they didn't give themselves a flexible build to start out with. Somebody mentioned, Van City Van Life is one of the few channels where you don't really get a things I hate about my build. And a lot of the bigger channels you do, because they'll like hide their electrics and then they'll hate something about how they set up their electrics and then they can't access it to fix it. So it's like, we need to rip out the whole build and start over, you know, which is crazy. The van lifestyle limits a quality healthcare plan. Not being able to afford healthcare limits a quality healthcare plan. So when you're poor and you have limited to no access to healthcare, I don't think van life is going to swing it one way or the other. I learned to live without a microwave oven over a decade ago. Good thing, LOL. Freedom Dove, just chiming in there, even though I know a little bit of a private discussion is going on about power. I consider it advantageous that I went into my van with very limited ability to do things. Limited power, and all these difficult things, whereas a lot of living in a house was just gone. Like, I just had to let it go. That wasn't a thing I could do anymore. And the thing is, when you build up from that situation, then everything else becomes a gift, you know? So, like, I didn't have solar for most of my van life so far. And so in the last couple of months, I've had solar. So it's an advantage, but also when solar is limited, when I'm just running off like a couple of spare power banks, like, it's something I've lived through before. And so it's not this like big debilitating thing where suddenly my life doesn't work. So it's nice to have the extra stuff. But I think a beautiful thing about van life is asking yourself what you can live without. So yeah, you know, what can I live without? Is that thing that I think I need in the van really that important? Or are there workarounds? And I think like that, it should not matter what one lives in as a theater entertainment or gypsy living. I was a headliner, nightclubs and theater clubs and Broadway actor 5 years. You live all over. Yes, but like most of the people I know, well, if you contact a theater in Chicago and be like, I live in a van in Berkeley, Chicago's probably not gonna like put your resume at the top of the pile when they have people already in Chicago not living in, who can like show up. So it's really still not that easy. Now, mind you, after I've gotten a job and I'm just completely open and I'm like, I live in a van. It's what I'm doing right now to save money so that I can work in this field. Like, people are really receptive to it, but it's just not the way to apply to a job. So being able to sell yourself to somebody out of town, especially when they're looking specifically in town and they have plenty access to people in town, you're not the first person they're going to hire. So you sort of have to get over that hurdle before they'll even look at your resume. And I do have a job out of town coming up in March, but that's because I had met the right contacts that my resume made the way up the line. And now I can be like, here's the deal. I have a van. I live in it. I'm going to be coming up in it. And then they don't care. But they have to see value in hiring somebody out of town. And it's very different with actors. It's very different with performers than it is technicians, because it's like, why am I going to hire somebody out of town, deal with the problem of hiring somebody out of town when there's people in town that I have access to? It just doesn't make sense. It's like any other hiring entity. And the only way you get around that is like, oh, I worked with this girl named Dawn and she was really cool. And I know you're looking for somebody and these particular things about her match the thing you're doing in a good way. So that's the hurdle. At the end of the day, it's still like, they still have local people not living in vans. And they're like, why am I going to like ship in this person from out of town? And they don't have a good reason to most of the time. And a lot of times people feel obligated to also, quote unquote, give you housing if they're bringing you from out of town, even when you have housing. And so if they're not an entity that already has that, you know, And it's very different for performers. Like, New York actors get shipped all over the place. And it's hard for stage managers who aren't union stage managers to be given those same kind of open doors. Valerie says, I would love to see you go to Canada again. That was a fun video. I want to go to Canada and actually spend some time there, Valerie. But I need to get I need to have some things lined up where I know I can put away enough money to be, not working for a while, or know where my holes are going to fall into the year. So I'm really hoping sort of these two things I'm waiting on become solid so I can actually plan some actual tripping. But also, I'm okay with there not being a lot of trips in 2020 so that there can be more in 2021. Samantha says, RV insurance is much cheaper than commercial insurance, less than half the cost, but in some places, vehicle habitation is not legal, and being registered as an RV is a giveaway, I have heard. Samantha, that's honestly a tricky part of insurance in this situation in general, is getting around some of the problems with insurance. Insurance is a challenge. I think whatever road you take as far as like just having insurance. Kavina Man, what about a 401k and or social security contributions? At some point we all need to plan for retirement. Yeah, but when you just don't have any extra money and you're just like, how am I going to eat next week? And do I have enough money to just pay the basic stuff? I mean, sometimes like retirement is just something can't be a part of your life plan. And some people literally don't plan for it because it's like it doesn't exist as an actual possibility. The ability to think, oh, I'm planning for retirement is honestly, unfortunately, a privilege. It should be a right, but it's a privilege. It's a privilege of being in the position to be able to even think that way. And when you're thinking, I'm just wondering if I have enough money to make it through next month, thinking about retirement literally makes no difference because it's not a reality. Like, that's not ever going to be your life. So yeah. I'm trying to talk my better half into van life, and you're helping me out a lot. Awesome. Truth hurts. How do you deal with safety? Do you research places before you park and sleep? No, truth hurts. I do not. I take it all on a feeling, and maybe that's not the smartest way to do it, but I don't park anywhere I don't feel safe. If I go into a neighborhood and I'm like, this doesn't feel chill, I leave and go somewhere else I feel safe. So yeah. And that's my answer to that one. I have no specific planning for safety. So except like this doesn't feel right, and this does feel right. How's dating while living in a van? Have you found that people are open-minded, or how does that work for you? AH asks for this. I had this is a personal question. So I have had a terrible, I have been a geeky, dorky nerd since I was a teenager, and I have had terrible luck with women in general. And that was before the van. And since the van, it's been pretty much the same, to be honest. I haven't really thought about dating since I've been in a van because I've been in survival mode, and dating is literally irrelevant in survival mode. My best friend, who has been in a couple of my videos, she knows that I live in a van. And so like it does affect hanging out because I live in a minivan, so I can't be like, hey, come over and sit in my minivan, even though she has been in my minivan. So it's more like when I had access to a house, it was like, I have a house, come hang out. And we ended up hanging out. And I was house sitting at the time. And, we watched a movie that night, and it was super great. But as far as like actual dating, girls aren't really that into me for some real reason. So I didn't do a lot of dating before the van. Like, I've had 2 short-term girlfriends, and that's it. One when I'm going to get real truthful right now. So my first girlfriend I had when I was 28, I want to say, and she was my first kiss. And then when I went back to college, which was a couple years later, I met a girl and we kind of hung out. I met her via like dating apps and we like hung out for a bit. But mostly like girls weren't into me before the van, so that makes no difference. Why am I telling the truth? See you, Officer Thomas. I really enjoy watching your progress. Nancy's back. I love how you went into the van starting small and getting better. I think it's the best way to do it. I'm really behind on comments. Yes, I am. Because I'm trying to like not miss people, so I'm like scrolling really slow. Jesus, how long have I been on? Oh, it's almost an hour. Okay. It's not as long as I thought, because I see people like, I gotta go. It's 7:30 here, so yeah, I think some people could be like way behind that. Hello, Gary from Canada. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not really woken up by street sounds, honestly. I've always been a hard sleeper. I have not watched From the Van podcasts. Freedom Dove, thanks for all the greeting on behalf of me. My son worked in a theater in New York and they gave him housing, but he ended up in a tent in the yard. Oh, that sucks. Sorry, Nancy. Ugh. Lula, I'm not gonna read this comment because I'm trying to catch up, but that sucks. Wiping out your retirement 3 times. Ugh. Yeah, unemployment or underemployment. So like retirement works for some and shoots some in the foot. Lanny, see, that's great advice when you're young. When it's already passed you by and nobody gave you that advice about retirement, it's already passed you by. So yeah, it'd be great. There's a lot of stuff I wish some people told me when I was young, but once young is gone, like there's nothing you can do about it. Once your young is gone and you're in survival mode and there's literally no backup person except for you in survival mode, it's kind of hard to circle back and make up the years that are gone. Geeky nerdy people, woohoo! That's right, Miriam. Yeah, if I freeze refresh your browser, usually I've had a couple disconnects, but then I usually reconnect. Have I caught up? I kind of went through them kind of fast. LOL, sounds like you need to connect with more non-binaries. Love you. Thanks for your vids and this live feed. How do you connect with more non-binaries? I don't even know how to do that. I know a guy who met the love of his life at 37, no relationships before this one. That's good. I'm already past 37. Okay, so I think I'm relatively caught up. Some people wrote some really long comments and they were interesting questions. So I really wanted to address some of them. I know some channels that only acknowledge super chats to encourage super chats, but I feel like the live space is a good space to really just like hear you guys and interact with you guys and answer questions that, you know, I may not otherwise not be able to answer. So it's really great getting that chance to like interact and talk and like reply. Yeah, but Lanny, I don't feel like reparking. Like, the spot is safe, and I'm kind of going to jump back into editing right after this. I I saw someone who just met a girlfriend on the app. Maybe you can meet people there. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little personal one more time. So my friend Cora, I did an interview with her. I met her on Tinder. And so like we went on a date, and basically we figured out that we were better friends. So like I've used the apps and they mostly haven't worked. Like they just haven't worked. Mostly because I am good with like actually hanging out and actually getting to know people in person. I am horrible at keeping up over messages. And so it's like after like the second message, I'm like, can we just meet? I don't say it like that, but like I'd rather get on with the meeting because I'm not going to be a good conversationalist over like text. So like it's really more solid for me when I've like met people in real life. So yeah, like I've tried the apps. They just, they don't work for me. Like I've met some people, but usually we end up being friends. I'm really good at collecting like casual friends, but that's usually where it lands. And people are like, they think like I'm adorable, but adorable like a puppy, not adorable like I want you to be my girlfriend. That's the way life goes. Why am I so honest? I should be embarrassed at my lameness. I'm trying to read comments now. Love will find you eventually. You're a good person. That's what I keep hearing, but it hasn't happened in 40 years. You concerned about brake ends when your whole life is in your vehicle? Not any more than I would be in a house, to be honest. Like, I just don't let my life, like, be crowded over by those things. Yeah, I know there's, like, specifically, Lex is an app for lesbian, bi, transgender, etc., but hey, I'm chronically single, too. There's also an app called Her, and it basically sucked, too, at least for me. So, yeah. Jason Moss says, I understand that. Does van life complicate that? I think it's been the same. Like, I think I'm the same me. I mean, honestly, watching people who've gained girlfriends, boyfriends, etc. after van life, like they were already living in the van and they met somebody, like the right person isn't going to care about your van life. And that's how I feel about it. The right person would respect my situation as much as my friends who know I live in a van respect my situation and the reasons why I'm in my situation. Somebody who would judge me for it, I wouldn't want to be around that person anyway. So I don't really care. Like if it's going to be a turnoff, then we're not right for each other. So I'm not worried about it. Yeah. Damn girl, adorable like a puppy. Yeah, a puppy or like a teddy bear. So it's like, oh, you're adorable, but not really someone I want to date. Hi, Dawn. I'm just joining in. I love your openness. Thanks. Peace. So yeah, I've now you guys know like some really like personal stuff about me. Oh, and obviously in the Emily video, I like admitted that I initially tried to ask Emily out and completely failed. And then like we pretty much circled around to just being friends, which is great. Honestly, she's one of my closest friends right now, and like I wouldn't give that up for anything. I think like friendship is this beautiful thing that's like undervalued sometimes. So it's like, yeah. How's the new power bank working out? I actually love it. The phone that I'm live streaming on is actually hooked up to it right now. So it's working pretty good. You're so happy and friendly. Have you ever had a BF? By BF, do you mean boyfriend? No. But not for the lack of well, how can I phrase it? Guys have hit on me, and I've just known, like, it wasn't there, like the right feeling wasn't there. And you just know, I mean, you know when you know, and you know. So yeah, I'm not gonna get any more personal than that about it. It's not for like a lack of interest from males. Uh, Maybe less so recently, but definitely when I was younger, you know, there were guys that were interested, and I didn't even realize I was blowing them off because I just wasn't like interested, so it just didn't occur to me. I was just apparently giving them the cold shoulder without thinking about it. Honestly, I gave up on dating ages ago, and I'm trying to make as many friends as I can. I'm all about having friends. Also, like, I don't know if I have space in my life for a girlfriend right now. I mean, it'd be nice to have somebody to date every once in a while, but I definitely don't know that I'm in a good place for a girlfriend right now. Like, I really want to have an established career, and I want to work on getting my finances together so I can have a bigger living space. And once I have a bigger living space, then maybe a girlfriend would make sense. But like right now, it's like, I mean, if like one turned up and she happened to be the one, like, I'm not going to reject that situation occurring naturally. But like right now, it's not something that I'm focused on, you know. And I think it would be, I would feel this obligation to put energy towards that I think would distract me from goals that are very important to me. But at the same time, I think love is a beautiful thing, and should it come, I would not reject it for the sake of the goals. But I'm not pursuing it because I feel like pursuing it would be a big distraction to the bigger goals. And like, I do have all these like beautiful friendships in my life right now that are so precious to me. And it's good to have those friends, because when I need that person, when I do, as much as I'm an introvert, like, humans need other humans. So I can enjoy, like, you know, a lot of time alone and have a full life. But there are times where you want to be around other people, you want to talk to other people, you want to share with other people. And so it's nice to have people like that you can reach out to, be like, something great happened, can you hang out with me to celebrate it? They're excited for you when good things happen, you're excited for them. And it's those connections that are intimate and valuable, rather than not you have that romantic relationship existing or not. Like, people tend to value that too much over all these other connections that are so precious. Now I'm getting off my soapbox. Thank you. I'm going to have these weird, like, blue colored videos for my lives just because of how my lighting is. Let me look at some of these comments. Girlfriends come and go, but real friends, you can count on them. Exactly. I've been with the same guy 20 years. We are more like friends now. Well, that's good. Like, that's what you have to remind young people. Like, they meet each other when they're young, and they think it's going to be the same hot and heavy romance forever. But if you're not friends, like, you're not going to be able to sustain for 20 years. Like, you have to like each other beyond, you know, the hot and sweaty stuff. Yanni, I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. Oh, dang, it's almost midnight. Yoga with Mo. See you. All right. So any other questions that aren't too personal? Because I feel like I didn't know this was going to turn into, like, Dawn's love chat. Oh. Favorite YouTube channels. I've been watching a lot of non-van life channels, Samantha. I've been, like, really into, there's this channel called Terrible Writing Advice. I am also a writer. So that's one of my other, like, artistic pursuits, is I'm a writer. And it's a really funny channel. It's called Terrible Writing Advice, and it's hilarious. I'm liking a lot of channels on animation right now. just because I'm interested in it and it's something I really, really love. And once you're in van life, there are people I love in van life. I talk about them all the time. But hang on. There are people I love in van life. Sorry, I'm rewinding myself. But as you live in a van, the people you stay attached to are more about their personalities than information. Before I was like fully in the van life, or early in the van life, I was watching a lot of van life channels to learn how to live in a van. And now that I'm past that, I only keep up with the people whose personalities and life stories I'm interested in, even if they've transitioned out of van life. But yeah, I've been watching a lot. There's another channel that's called like Sarcastic Productions or something. And they also do, a lot of writing advice through animation. So I really love those channels. Yeah. Would you ever come to the East Coast if I had work? Yes. Do you have any favorite workout channels? No, because I have a bunch of Beachbody videos, so I don't use YouTube for that, because then I would have to depend on streaming, and since I have them on DVD, I can just put them in a portable DVD player and play them wherever. Whereas if somebody was on YouTube, I'd have to like keep up with them. I'd have to make sure I have internet, and I'd rather just work off the disc. And I really love my Shalene Extreme videos. So that's Turbo Jam and Shalene Extreme are two of my favorite DVD programs. I love the write. I need to get back into it. Me too, Jason Moss. That's why I've been watching a lot of writing YouTubers, a lot of writing advice channels. How many times have you been woken up by the cops in the middle of the night? Thanks, Dawn. 0. Since I've been in van life, 0. The actual cops, 0. I've been woken up by security guards who are not cops in parking lots twice. And literally it was the most non-event ever. It was, you can't sleep here. Okay. Driver's seat. Vroom. Go out to the neighborhood, repark, go to sleep. I've literally never been bothered in the neighborhood, like ever. There was a time a long time ago where I lived in a house and I fell asleep in the front seat of my car, and I was woken up by a cop. But as an actual van dweller, or even as a person consciously living in a car before the van, I've never been woken up by the cops. I've never been harassed by the cops. Cops have never been involved with me and the van. Never been involved with me in the car, and there's only been 2 security guard incidents. And literally all they do is like, you can't sleep here. Okay, leave. You know. Richard says, Dawn, do you ever get depressed? And if you do, how do you deal with it? Depression is a heavy word. Do I ever get down? Yes. I don't like to say depressed, because depression in and of itself is an actual like thing. And I'm not going to self-diagnose that in myself. I do get down. And when I do, some days I spend like 2 days doing absolutely nothing. And then like, I decide I need to do something, and then I start doing something, and I keep doing something until I'm so distracted by that something that, I'm just caught up in that something. So getting myself busy with something is the best way to get me out of being down. Will you come back to Vancouver again? Yes. It's just a question of when. Beth says, what happens if an actor doesn't show up for a performance? I don't know what you mean by that question. Are you talking about when I'm the stage manager? If I'm the stage manager, I call them and try to figure out what's happening. In an ideal world, you have an understudy. And when you don't have an understudy, you hope you have enough fair warning to prepare for the fact that an actor isn't there. But I'm not quite sure. I mean, like, what happens if somebody doesn't show up for their job? You either work around the fact that they're not there, you try to find them, and you delay work until you get them there, or you find a replacement. And an actor's just a person doing a job. It just happens to be acting. And it's pretty much those things just within the context of theater. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. Like, I saw the question, but I was like, I don't even know how to deal with this. an actor not showing up for a performance is a person not showing up for their job. Most actors are insanely responsible, actually. And I've had actors show up sick. I've had them show up with broken bones. I had them show up to the point where I'm like, you can't perform, and we are going to figure out how to do this show with you unable to perform. Yeah. Can you do a video on your sleeping routine? I think it'd be very boring, MJ. Evening routine, maybe, but sleeping routine is like, get my bed sheets together and climb into my sleeping bag. I don't know. I mean, I could do one. I'd have to figure out, like, at what point would I be, taking care of my evening. And everything's so, like, the thing is, like, everything's so different. When I was working at the theater in Sunnyvale, like, my van was in the parking lot, and once I got to Sunnyvale, like, it didn't move. And so it was like, I came out the building, and I either ate and went to bed, or I just went straight to bed. So yeah. I mean, I guess I could do something. I just have to think about, like, the weird thing is, like, after you've been in a van a while, you're like, this is just life. Like, and to you yourself, it's boring. Like, for me, my sleeping routine is like, okay, I'm going to bed. And so it's just like if I was going to bed anywhere else, which probably isn't true because there are things I have to do before I go to bed, especially if I decide to prepare food before bed or anything like that. So I just have to think about, like, what that video would be. And like I said, everything changes depending on how I'm working at that time. Yoni, I don't love street noise, but most of my issues are social anxiety related and often solved by moving to a new area, but suffocating with regular housemates or neighbors. Yoni, I think we're a lot alike, because even when I loved my housemates, I would feel suffocated by this idea of obligation to interact with them, and I'm energized by my alone time. So yeah, MJ, you're chiming in. To me, sleeping in a tiny space seems cozy. If I didn't have a family, I would totally do some sort of time. Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, my van is sort of like my safe cave. And the good thing about my safe cave, going back to what Yoni said, is I can take my safe cave wherever I want to. So if I'm like, I need to get away from this area or situation, that ability to leave really appeals to me, you know. But yeah, Yoni, I totally get you. And you don't have to deal with street noise if you don't want to. That's the good thing about the van. For me, the convenience of being near the things I need to be near just doesn't bother me. MJ, thank you for the $9.99 super chat. That's so awesome. Yeah, Nancy, and that's the thing. It's like, if you have other obligations and other things to think about, like if I had kids, or even if I'd had a girlfriend around the time my finances got complicated, like, I feel like my decisions would have been different, because I would feel the obligation of those people. Now, mind you, there are people in all kinds of situations that figure out how to do it. There's a lot of people who qualify as disabled who figure out how to do van life in their situation, but it's definitely easier when you are just obligated to yourself, and you can say, screw it, I'm gonna do it, because then you can just go do it. You don't need another person to agree to it. Like, even if you're a relatively well-to-do couple, you still have to convince that other person it's a good idea if they're not really into it. And a lot of time with van life couples, I've seen, like, one person was, like, really excited about it, and they were talking to their partner, like, this would be really cool, and these are the reasons it would be really cool. And usually that other person eventually gets into it, and in the good situations, they like it, but you still have to convince another person, even if you're both in perfect health. And it gets more complicated when you're dealing with children who are school-aged, family members who are depending on you. And so, yeah, all those things can affect your ability to just drop it and do it. Have you ever considered renting someone's parking space at an apartment complex? Lanny, I don't see a point in paying for apartment space. Like, I don't park the same place all the time, and what's the best place for me to park changes based on what kind of work I'm doing at the time, or if I have no work obligations at all. So I don't want the obligation of going back to a certain spot. So I don't really see the appeal of renting a space. I don't feel unsafe in any way I've been parking the last year. And I'm totally comfortable, and at least emotionally feel safe in my situation. So the idea of like renting a parking space is like renting storage. It's like, why? It just wouldn't make sense for me. I've been waiting for my son to be old enough to leave. I hope to get my wings this year. I have 3 grown children and a man, and I am leaving did you mean them? Do you think you will live in a tiny home in the future if you decide to no longer live in a van? I don't really see a not van future, or at least I see a bigger vehicle future. So I think I would like a piece of land. I think I would like a piece of land where I could park a larger vehicle for longer stretches of time. But right now, I just don't see the appeal of a static home. I would definitely like a bigger vehicle, a vehicle where like I could have a few more of the creature comforts, but I really don't see a regular house in my future right now at all. I will personally need a storage unit. I'm not so minimalist, LOL. A lot of people start with a storage unit and then slowly transition out of it, because what happens, especially if you're cheap, is you put all this stuff in a storage unit. And this doesn't happen for everybody, because I know van dwellers who still like rotate stuff out of their storage unit. But what can happen, especially if you're cheap, is you have this storage unit and you put a bunch of stuff in it, and it's the stuff you don't need. And people do this in houses too. And then like a month passes and 6 months pass, and you really don't need mostly anything in that storage unit. And you're like, how much money have I been paying? Do I really need any of this junk? And for some people, not all, it makes you want to slowly get rid of the junk just so you don't have to pay for it. And an easy solution, Chrome does not have a storage unit anymore. He slowly worked his way out of having it. But what some people also do, if there are like specific heirlooms or family things that they want to hold on to, they'll get a box or 2 of that, and then they'll put that in a relative's house. But it's not worth preserving like a whole storage unit for. I have a ton of reading material and other things that I still need and can't cheaply replace. I will rotate out the reading material twice a year. I understand. I got rid of a bunch of books, but it was hard because I used to have a beautiful book collection, but I let it go. But you may need your books for other reasons. There's digital books and there's audio books, which I love the feeling of a physical book. But it's nice to know there's options to still have that reading material that doesn't necessarily take up a lot of space. You may have talked about this before, but how do you access the internet in a van? Do you use your phone as a hotspot? So do you have unlimited data? I have unlimited data on my phone, but not as a hotspot. Right now I'm using Walmart Family Mobile. So like on my phone as a phone, I have unlimited data, but as a hotspot, I don't. That is limited, but the limited data I get from my phone as a hotspot usually serves what I need to do, on the computer, like answering emails, checking things out. Usually for streaming, I'd rather use my phone because it's unlimited, which means I'm watching things on a smaller screen, but it means that it's unlimited, so I can do whatever I want on my phone, and there's like no data cap. When I'm using it as a hotspot, there is a data cap. I hope that explains it. Yoni, there's a benefit when it isn't annoying to go to and from the storage unit. What I personally found with storage units, and I saw the same thing happen to Chrome from University Vanlife, is it was this place I had to go back to. And no matter where you put that thing, it's a thing that you have to go back to. And maybe that worked for some personalities, but one of the reasons I really connected with Chrome is he seemed to get sick of that as quickly as I did. And it was like, yeah, it's a nice place to keep stuff, but then I have to plan to go get it, and I have to go there, and I have to switch stuff out, and I'd rather just have everything I own in my van. It was much easier and obviously cheaper. And that was just me. Like, I just didn't, there was nothing worthy of paying that storage rent. Like, nothing. Freedom Dove, scanning exists. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, and like I said, there's also like, how much do I need, and could it go somewhere where I don't pay rent? And the thing about storage units is rent. There was stuff I gave away that I wish I still had. There was stuff I gave to people I knew would care about it, but it was more important to me not to pay the storage rent. And that's what it came down to. It was a choice between keeping stuff or not paying storage rent, and I'd rather not pay storage rent. There are people who actively use their storage, but for me, it was annoying to get to. I had to plan trips to go to my storage unit. It was just annoying. There was the costs. There was being obligated to something that was static. There was, how attached am I to these things really? Like, I want them to keep them, but how attached to them really? But yeah, there's other reasons that other people would have kept storage units and do. For me, it did not work. And that's what it came down to. And there was no active need for it. I don't know how many people used to watch Anthony, what was it was called My Life on Wheels, and now he calls his channel After Van Life. But when he was living out of his Toyota Sienna, he had a storage unit and he had a candle business. And because he had the candle business, the storage unit was an important part of him living out of a van. So there's definitely reasons to keep a unit if you live in a van and there are life things you want to happen. Miles, I don't know where you live, but I paid twice that amount for a closet size storage unit in California. Some places is 4 or 5 times that for a closet size storage unit. So where you are, it's $15 a month. It is not $15 a month everywhere. Samantha, I tried to sign up for Visible and it was hell, so excuse my language, so I said screw them and gave up. Richard, do you recommend a Toyota Sienna for van dwelling? I recommend minivans for urban van dwelling if you're on a tight budget and you're willing to make a compromise. The thing about any minivan is that it's a minivan. And I think you have to mentally prepare yourself for the limitations of that. And if you're cool with that, I think you can have a really comfortable van life. And if you're not cool with it, then it's not going to work for you. Some people are just like too uncomfortable in a minivan and it's like, nope, can't do it. This is Miles. This is random, but Dawn, if you had any chance of any type of van, what would it be? I would love what's called a cutaway. It basically looks like a box truck. It is a box truck, but it's a van with like a truck structure on the back. If not that, I wouldn't mind a step van. And if not that, I wouldn't mind a shorty shuttle bus. So those are, and an ambulance. So those would be my top 4 choices. It would be a cutaway van, which is essentially a box truck, but it has an entrance point between the cab and the back. A shuttle bus, a step van, or an ambulance. Those would be my ideal vehicles. Bridgestone in Richmond rents out storage units and also mailboxes. So you can get a unit and a mailbox or just a mailbox. And it gives a real, not P.O. box address as well. Good recommendation. I use a mailbox service in Berkeley that also gives you a real address. The thing about anything that's not an actual real address is that it will still get flagged certain places as not a real address, but it happens like not that often. So I think you should always investigate an option that's going to give you a real address. I don't know how far bridge storage is. My whole thing is like, I don't want it to be too out of the way of where I usually drive, because then I hit that storage frustration. And I hit that because my original storage unit, I was looking for the cheapest unit, and I was like, it could be at anywhere. But that anywhere was nowhere where I went on a daily basis. So it became a chore to get to those places. Thank you, Miles Stewart. Ooh, like a box truck, Dawn? Exactly. I think box truck builds are awesome. Dylan, but those aren't stealth. Yes, they are. Anything that drives in the city and is seen in the city commonly is stealth. Like, I think people have a grand misunderstanding of what stealth is. I think stealth is it weird this is in the city? If it's not weird this is in the city, then it's stealth. A Class C RV is weird. Like, they're weird. It's like, why is this on a city corner? Why is it in a city street? These things belong not in the city. Box trucks are all over the city. Cargo vans are all over the city. Ambulances are all over the city. Shuttle buses are all over the city. All of those things are stealth. And as long as you don't look weird, as long as it's not like, why is this in the middle of suburban, township, it'll be fine. You can definitely park anywhere in the city in any of those vehicles, as long as you're being smart. And I don't even think, and I've seen people go overboard where they put labels on the side and stuff. I see plain box trucks all over the place. So all of those vehicles can be quote unquote stealth. So yeah. Ambulances are nice, very well built. And also ambulances usually already have sort of cabinetry in, so it's usually a really easy transition build if you don't want to bother with stripping out the whole thing. Unlike shuttle buses where you usually have to get all the stupid seats out. Ambulance sounds cool. I love ambulances. I bet the Cutaway could be pretty stealth. I've already said why I think they're stealth. How would you register the ambulance? People sell used ambulances all the time. I think there is it depends on if it's still under whatever status it was as an ambulances, but ambulances get resold all the time, so I'd have to do research. But you can re-register them as personal vehicles and also register them as converted RVs, and that's just on paper. On the street, people are still going to see an ambulance. But I would take off any of the symbols of the coloring. I would leave, because people are going to look past the coloring. But I would take off any of the symbols of ambulance. Am I blocking my face because I'm looking in the wrong place? I would take away all the symbols and stuff. Yep, they're way more stealth than an RV. All four of those vehicles are pretty stealth if you do them the right way. And a Cutaway box truck could have a crap ton of solar on the roof and no one would ever see it from street level. I think here's my opinion on solar panels. People really don't pay that much attention. People obsess way too much over the solar panel thing. Most people on the street aren't paying that much attention to the top of your vehicle. And even on a shorty vehicle, all they see is this thin piece of metal that's slightly raised up off the roof. And they're not thinking as much about it as we give them credit for. Nobody cares about solar panels. Nobody. It's just not that big of a deal. People really flip out too much about this whole solar panel on the roof thing. But some vehicles can't park in certain areas. Dylan, everywhere I park now, I could park in all four of those vehicles. Everywhere that I personally park now, I could park in all four of those vehicles without a problem. So whatever these areas are, the only place I could think of that you couldn't park those vehicles, which would be a shorty shuttle bus, a small box truck, not a big one, Not like the giant moving van, but a small box truck. A small box truck or a cutaway van isn't much longer than, in fact, some of them are shorter than some of the longest length Mercedes Sprinters and what's the other one? Any of the popular standing height vans. Most of the cutaways are about the same length. So they still fit wherever a large van would fit. Ambulances can park anywhere. They're tall, but not, most of them are short. Literally, and honestly, if somebody sees an ambulance parked in the neighborhood, unless it's there for like days, nobody's going to pay attention to it. So I still argue you could get away with neighborhood parking in it. Did I cover all of my vehicles? And the step van. Step vans can park a lot of places. Like, I don't know why people, they're not weird. They look like delivery vehicles. People don't pay them that much attention. And I see cargo vans parked in neighborhoods all the time, because what people keep forgetting is regular people own cargo vans. People have personal businesses. People own houses, have personal businesses wherein they buy a cargo van. So white cargo vans are everywhere. It's only suspicious if, one, you hang out in the neighborhood a long time, so they're like, why is this white van hanging around? And that's pretty much it. That's when it's suspicious. Like, you don't park directly in front of somebody's house. If you park on like the side, nobody's going to pay attention to it, especially if there's a lot of street parking. Like, there's tons of ways to get away with parking commercial vehicles, especially shorter ones. Now, when you start getting like really long and really big, like, that's when it's not really the type of vehicle. A lot of small box trucks are really short. A lot of step vans can fit in a lot of places. And so I think they're really underestimated as vehicles a lot. And I tend to look around a lot, and whenever I see like a big vehicle in like a random place, I'm like, see, they're really all over the place. As long as it's a city vehicle. It's when it's very obviously an RV, then everybody's like, that's weird, because it doesn't look like it belongs. So yeah. I think they're all pretty stealthy, and I don't even think, if you're smart, you have to you only do industrial areas. I think there's a lot of smart places to park all of those vehicles. So yeah, except for vehicle areas that have been overwrought with sort of the RV problem, and we're talking about people in the dirty RVs throwing the trash, like, they're suspicious of everything, and that's why I don't sleep in those places. Is there a channel of an ambulance build? That would be cool. I've seen ambulance tours, rescue dog treats. So if you look up ambulance tours, I don't know if there's a channel where somebody owns one. Obviously, Paul Berger is our step van guy with the bread truck. I've seen somebody else with a step van. I've seen a bunch of box truck conversions, but not any really good channels that last. But I've seen a lot of really good like box truck van tours. If there's a channel out there, I haven't caught onto it, but I've seen a lot of really good box truck conversions on sites that do van tours. You got to get between the box and the cab, though, without getting out of the vehicle. So the cutaway would be, yes, Samantha, that's why I specifically said a cutaway and not a regular box truck. Because with the cutaway, it's just like a van. You can like get from the cab to the back from inside of the vehicle. Technically, an ambulance is a cutaway, which a lot of people don't realize. The ones especially that sort of have like what looks like maybe like a Ford front or a Chevy front, and then have the box structure in the back, that's basically a cutaway that's been turned into an ambulance. So technically they're the same vehicle. It's just one has been fixed up into a specific other type of vehicle. Nancy McIntyre, unless you know about van life, you don't notice it. Exactly. Like, there's so much stuff people on the street do not pay attention to. Like, there's stuff I specifically pointed out to people who know I live in my van, and they're like, oh, I wouldn't have paid attention to that if you hadn't pointed it out. And like, so we're really worried about things that people see on the street that they don't see. There are online biddings that you build. Alvester. There are online auctions that you can bid on an ambulance. Sellers remove the decor on them. Yes, exactly. But also sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're literally on auction with all of the decor on them, and sometimes it's on you to remove it, because if you're not an emergency vehicle, you're not supposed to have the emergency symbols on there. But if the paint job still looks like an ambulance, people are going to ignore you and just assume you're an ambulance, even if you don't have all the markings there, because the lights are still going to be there. And if the paint job is pretty much ambulance like, people are just going to see an ambulance and not think about it. No one ever thinks about the solar panel being on top of a vehicle. LOL. Exactly. Like it's on top of a vehicle. Like, people do not think that much about what's on top of a van, even a short van. But all four of them have to be registered commercial and not RV unless they meet standards, which means you pay more for insurance. Nancy, it depends. Because I know somebody who got a bus that had already been registered as a personal vehicle, not an RV, just a personal vehicle, and they never had to deal with the commercial insurance problem. So it really can depend. But also you can just be willing to go through. Sometimes you can just put in the minimal stuff to call it an RV, and it'll depend from state to state, because some states are really easy, some states are harder. And it may not be your finished build, but it's all the requirements of an RV. It doesn't have to be a finished, pretty build sometimes to be an RV. You may just have to install like a sink and a toilet and whatever else the state calls, RV status. Take it down, get it done. I know a lot of people have actually gone down to DMV in some areas and found it much easier than they thought. It's hard to find information online. I think there has been an uptick in conversions, which makes it harder in some areas than others. But you don't have to do like a full perfect build. You just have to fulfill the minimum requirements of the state to call it an RV. So yeah, yes, you could start out with the commercial insurance problem, but you could start out with the commercial insurance problem with a Mercedes Sprinter. Those are commercial vehicles. The Dodge Ram ProMaster is a commercial vehicle. Like, a lot of these vehicles are commercial vehicles, and we tend to forget that. So you can still face the commercial insurance problem depending on how and where you get it. There was a guy in a full purple RV, 20 feet long, just incredible. And he says, just move every night, leave in the morning, and keep your vehicle clean and respectable. No stealth needed. Miriam, Justin's pretty much right. There are some limits. Neighborhoods where they've had bad interactions with van dwellers or RV dwellers or vehicle dwellers, they might be on more high alert and more concerned. But generally, like, people aren't like gonna bother you as long as you follow the general rules of respect. And just take a look around, I'm on the tail end of raising my 2 children. I'm also a barista with Starbucks. Our company lets you transfer every 6 months to another location. Has anyone else been a traveling barista? Oh my goodness, I didn't know there was an option. Tracy, that is so smart. I like that. Also, I would like to mention that Justin Credible is a Canadian, which some people feel like, oh, Canada's different. All right, so this live chat has been going for an hour and 45 minutes. Wait, I saw a comment. The old FedEx truck would be perfect, thanks. FedEx usually has step vans, I think. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Jenna C pointed out something important. It says a lot of people drive their work vehicles home each night. Exactly. As I said, there's perfectly good reasons why people have commercial vehicles in regular neighborhoods. I would only do it in neighborhoods where there's a lot of people parking on the street, and more than likely a lot of people don't know whose car belongs to whose. But yeah, it's not that hard. Like, it's not that hard to park any of those vehicles. Like cargo vans, and by cargo vans, people forget this, the Mercedes Sprinter, the Ford Transit, and the what's the other one? I just said it. ProMaster. They're all cargo vans. They're not the short length cargo vans. Usually people get them for their height, but they're all cargo vans. They're just cargo vans. They're in the city every day. Step vans are in the city every day. Small box trucks are in the city every day. Ambulances are in the city every day. They all work. And a lot of people own their vehicles, and they're licensing their vehicle to another company as a delivery driver or something like that. There's some sort of contractual thing going on, but they're their own independent contractor who owns their own cargo van, or whatever. Even a lot of the ambulances are owned by not the hospital, but the actual, what do you call them? The guys who work in the ambulance. Those people sometimes actually own the ambulance. Is its own private business that's licensed to the hospital. So a lot of times those things are quote unquote privately owned. Maybe not, for a casual house vehicle, but you never know. And people they don't think that hard about it. EMT. Thank you, Karen. Yes, a lot of the EMTs are micro businesses on their own. A lot of those ambulances don't actually belong to the hospitals. They're independently owned. So yeah, I think that's a good place to close it. We've discussed commercial vehicles, but just remember they're all commercial vehicles, like every single one. So yeah, people, you can get creative. Not everybody has to buy the Mercedes Sprinter, which is a commercial vehicle. I heard some cities in California also have a height requirement. There's some streets that have a height requirement. If you read signs, you can avoid them actually quite easily. I think that's a good place to close it. All right, guys, I gotta go. I maybe want to try to finish this video tonight. All right. Bye-bye.